So 1.5 years in and we're 200 grams lighter than the original bike weight. Just as with all my bikes, they keep on evolving from the first build up until they eventually get sold or retired in some kind of way. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't think I would get a custom titanium disc brake bike down to this weight without going on some crazy compromising parts. As you know, I don't do these builds for YouTube. I do them to make it as my everyday bike and for the rides I really enjoy doing, which is long days out in the Japanese mountains where I can have 100% confidence that my bike won't break down without a valid reason, so to speak. I will say I'm not as confident in my own body not to break down. My plan for this video was actually to be outside in the mountains. This is the favorite time of year to ride here in Japan, in my opinion. But of course, as clumsy as I am, I went and took another spill. And as you know, the bike is always the most important part. So when I knew I was going down, I did everything I could to protect the bike with my body. And I did a pretty good job. I think actually the only thing that got damaged was the saddle, which I unfortunately need to replace. The body, on the other hand, didn't fare so well. Nicked one collarbone. Nice plate, scorpion plate in there now. 5 ribs on this side. It's very, very comfortable to sleep right now. And to top it off, I cracked my pelvis. So been a very nice, fun few weeks, but that's not the point of this video. Definitely no reason to feel sorry for me. I just need a little bit more rest and I will be back on the bike. But instead, let's see how I got down to sub 6.4 on this bike now. And of course, the most eye-catching part and the thing I got the most questions about and DMs on Instagram and all that mess is of course the Darimo Nexum Drag handlebar. So I have a little confession to make. More than just weight, I've been very obsessed by fixing the silhouette of this bike or the side profile. If you remember the first build, I had the Schmokli stem and the THM bar, and that was a bit too chunky and it bothered me to no end. Especially with the kind of oval thin top tube, just make the whole front end, well, quite unbalanced. So when the Darimo Nexum Drag was announced last year, I immediately got very interested because of the stem part. It's like a 30mm stack, no, not 30mm, it's a 34mm stack, and I thought that would be a pretty good match for this frame. And since it's Darimo, I could count on the weight being in a class of its own. But if weight was the only thing I cared about, the Darimo Nexum without the drag would actually be a lighter option, I think. But the stack on that stem is humongous and the integration of the hose and stuff is not very clean either. So the drag kind of ticked more boxes for me than the non-drag version. Of course, the Nexum Drag is no pig. My bar here is 38 centimeters wide, has a 110mm stem, it's 6 degrees flare, and it's 218 grams. And I'm pretty sure you cannot find an aero bar at that weight from any other brand in that size and stuff like that. Now, I say aero, I doubt that this has seen an inside of a wind tunnel. Luckily for me, I care about aero about as much as I do about oversized pulley wheels or ceramic bearings. So yeah, not that much at all. I actually even managed to slam this directly onto the DCR top cap. I did do some slight modification on that top cap on the cable port just to make sure those brake hoses didn't get pinched. I eventually kind of smoothed out the harsh edges as well to make it flow a little bit better. Super stoked with this front end now, and while the original stem and handlebar definitely wasn't heavy at all, this still meant a 50-gram saving over that original combo. So I'm not complaining. So what about stiffness? That is probably the most common question I get. And I will say just a general rule, if stiffness is a high or a top priority for you, just stay away from all kinds of weight Weenie products. That's the kind of general rule, I would say. Now, if you look on the internet, you basically see more stiffs equals more better. That's kind of the general consensus out there, which probably makes me a bit of a weirdo, of course. Like, it wasn't weird enough. But I think at my 62 kilos, I think most bars out there are too stiff for my liking. Now I get, if you're a sprinter, you want a stiff bar, I realize that. But for me, sprinting is probably like about 0.00001% of the riding I do. So optimizing for sprinting, in my case, would be pretty redundant, I think. For reference, the Avian Canary handlebars became really popular last year as an alternative, like budget weight weenie option, but it also got called out for being way too flexy or not stiff enough. And for reference, I really rate that handlebar, as might be one of my favorite handlebars of all time. So keep that reference in mind with what I'm saying here. Now, the Nexum Drag is stiffer than the Canaries. I will say they do seem to transfer more vibrations than the Canaries do as well, but it's still not an uncomfortable bar by any stretch of the imagination. I can ride this all day, no problem at all. So I did some video experiments. I basically recorded myself on the bars, and I stabilized the head tube in the middle of the frame, so I thought that would kind of show off the actual flex of the handlebar. This is of course not a scientific kind of thing, but yeah, I did this on the Nexum Drag, the Avian Canary, and also on the NVAR bars, which is on my Echo, so that's with a separate stem. Like I said, not a scientific test, so take this for what you want, but I thought it would be a little more context than me saying A is stiffer than B. So yeah, do with this what you will. So there's two other points I want to bring up that's not really good or bad, it's kind of depending on what you want, but it might be something that's not that obviously if you just look at product images. So the specifications say it's 77mm reach and 128mm drop, which is pretty standard. But if you look at this mounted, you can see that the tilt of that drop is kind of pointing upwards. If you look at the bar ends, they're almost pointing a bit down compared to what I usually want is having the ends kind of parallel with the ground. This kind of means that to get the STI levers at the angle I want, I need to mount them further along the drop, which means the effective reach is almost about a centimeter longer than it was on my Canaries. And for reference, the Canaries have a reach specification of 76mm. So it's supposed to be 1mm difference, but in reality, it's almost 10mm difference. I almost went with a 120mm stem when I ordered this. In the end, I didn't, which I'm very happy now, having realized the reach increase for those hoods. But yeah, might be good to know. Another thing to point out is this stem is -6 degrees as per the specs. That's the effective angle. But if you look on the underside of that stem, it's basically straight 90 degrees out from the stereo tube. So when using a flat computer mount, like Darimo's own Nexum computer mount, for example, that will kind of point your bike computer a bit straight up in the air. Now, you might think this angle is perfect, it's more legible or whatever. I really want my computers to be flat as possible. My solution in the end was to get an 3D printed titanium mount from TI Parts, and that mounts at an angle, so I get the angle of the computer as I want it. I made a video about 3 different mounts, including the Darimo mount, on the Slayer of Grams channel just a few weeks back, which I go way more in depth on, all the kind of things you can do if you have the same issue as me. So check that out. I won't go further into this on this video because this is getting really long. But with this mount now on, this cockpit is pretty much perfect. This is what I wanted the bike to be all along. And I'm finally there, yes. Now, as I keep nagging on in my videos from time to time, I don't make review videos. Definitely don't look at this as buying advice. I pay for every single part that goes on my bike, including this handlebar, and I select them with the sole purpose of making my bike as enjoyable as possible. Of course, in my twisted mind, the weight part of the equation is pretty big. With that said, as happy as I am with this Nexum Drag handlebar, let me unsell you on Darimo just for a little bit. Bear with me. So it's all about expectations. What you can expect with Darimo is the absolute lightest in its class. If it's handlebar or seat posts, you won't find lighter parts. And Darimo is also one of the few brands, third-party brands, that actually makes lightweight parts for proprietary style seat posts, primarily seat posts. Like if you have a Cannondale and Specialized and Factor, whatever, you can get the Darimo seat post for that particular frame, and it probably will be the absolute lightest you can get. And I think that's pretty applaudable. I like it. Now that was more positive spin, sorry. Now let's talk about the slightly weird thing about Darimo. And let's start with the buying experience. And it's not good. It is pretty damn horrid. So if you want to buy directly from Darimo, you need to send them an email with, yeah, I want to buy this thing. You need to wait about 2 weeks if you're lucky. You might get a reply saying, yeah, we need this information and some more information. So you send that information back, wait another 2 weeks, and hopefully they didn't forget to answer you. You might get an invoice and a link to pay something online somewhere. All good in the hood, right? That is not a very enjoyable buying experience. Why they don't have an online order system in this day and age, it's pretty strange, I will admit. So knowing this, having tried to order stuff in the past, which never ended up happening, I did try to circumvent this time. Instead of ordering directly from Darimo, I reached out to R2 Bike and asked them if I could pre-order through them. And in the end, that was okay, and I could do their payment very smooth, no issues there. But that didn't help the second Darimo problem, and that is lead time. So back when I ordered mine, I think the lead time was 24 weeks. That is basically half a year. So if you're in a hurry, Darimo might not be for you. Going through R2 Bike, I thought maybe I can cheat the system a bit and get this a bit earlier. That did not happen. It took me 8 months in the end before I got the bar in my hands. I've heard recently that people are receiving them faster than 24 weeks, which is good, of course, but I would not set my expectation for that. So this is definitely not a product that you impulse buy and think you will have set up on your bike within a week or so, unless you find it in stock at some retailer somewhere. So another expectation. The surface finish on Darimo products is not perfect. They don't use any kind of lacquer or clear coat or anything, no fillers, so you will see surface imperfections on all their products. I have had 2 seat posts in the past and now the handlebar, and all of them has these small imperfections. And while they kind of keep spinning this as a feature, a uniqueness on their socials and stuff like that, yeah, it's kind of yeah. I do understand where they're coming from a bit. At least, I mean, they want to offer the absolute lightest. There will be no competition basically. But if this bar was, instead of 218 grams, say it was 235 grams, then you're suddenly competing against the Avian Canary for a fraction of the price, even though the finish would be comparable, so to speak. So in that case, for me, I probably wouldn't go with a Darimo. I'm thinking out loud here, but yeah, in that case, the allure of the Darimo products disappears for me. If it's not the lightest, then I might as well go with something cheaper. You know what I mean? I don't know what I mean. But I totally get that for some people, having to pay this amount of price and get anything but exceptional surface finish or whatever is unacceptable. if that is you, I mean, Darimo is definitely not for you. Stay away from Darimo. I can't really say much other than that. There's also a bit of a lottery of how much these surface imperfection will stand out. I've seen some examples that are worse than the one I have here, for example, and to their claim that every bar is unique, yeah, that might be a negative in some instances. So, yeah. Again, if you can find this in stock and actually inspect the product before you buy it, that might be ideal. And if you're a slightly saner person than me and don't care about weight, I think Darimo is probably not the brand you should look at to begin with. Now, I said 8 months delivery for me. During those 8 months, I did try a few other options. I got the Extralite stem, used that with the original THM bar, which was okay. I mean, doesn't look bad. But having those brake hoses going outside of the stem, yeah, was not what I was looking for. I wanted a fully integrated, no hoses in sight, so to speak. I also put on the Avian Canary handlebars for a few months, and while I really like the feel of that bar, it's kind of the same story there. Visually, it didn't do it for me. That stem part kind of looked a bit out of place. Of course, everyone has their own opinion. You know what they say, opinions are like asses. Everyone has one, it's just that mine is much more nicer than yours. Alright, so that's the Nexum Drag. Obviously 50 grams did not make up that whole 200 gram-ish savings to get to this bike weight. If you're really interested on every single gram, I have done an updated build sheet where I've highlighted all the kind of weight grams, not the weight grams, all the weight savings. But as a quick summary, there's about 3-4 other biggest savings on the bike. And if you've seen the video a few weeks back or a month back or so, I did a video on the Expedo pedals. Those pedals saved about 50 grams over the Dura Ace, so that's a nice chunk of change there. I've actually swapped the fork as well, and that's from the number 6 composite fork to the MV in-root fork. And this was not really about weight in the beginning, it was kind of the same deal. There's nothing wrong with the number 6 fork, but I thought the MV would look nicer, again, fixing that silhouette of the bike. In the end though, that fork actually saved me 40 grams over the number 6, so I'm not complaining. The MV dropped the front end 4 millimeters though, which I wasn't against at all, so in the end, yeah, that was a good call. Of course, 40 grams for a fork, it's still a lot of money and stuff like that, but man, you only live once, and I want my custom bike to be perfect, no compromises allowed. Another decent weight saving was going from my beloved Arundel Mandible tuned cages to these altitude, what are these cages called? I don't remember the model name, but to these altitude ball cages, they saved me about 20 grams there. I still claim that the Arundel Mandibles is the best cage in the world, but it's definitely not a weight weenie option really if you're really chasing grams. This altitude cages has actually worked better than I thought it would. There's a few smaller changes, a few grams here, a few grams there. Everything is listed down in the spreadsheet below, so check that if you're interested. I think most people have probably tuned out by now. I actually had more to say about the Nexum handlebar than I thought I would. So this is the end. This is the final episode of season 1 of the TI Weenie Saga. There might be a season 2 coming up. Who knows? I won't promise too much, but stay tuned. Ride water, drink safe. I should really take that advice to heart myself. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Peace.